Since the game's initial announcement, I thought Kingmakers looked, well, just like plain old, stupid good fun, to be honest with you. And I know I'm not alone. The premise is simple, right? You've been transported back in time to the Middle Ages. You got multiple nations at war. You're here stepping in, picking a side, and I assume somewhat easily turning the tide of battle thanks to the fact that you've got modern weaponry with guns, explosives, trucks, tanks, helicopters. It's ridiculous looking, but in a good way. Like all of the footage I've seen of this game, every single trailer I've just been like, yeah, that looks good. That looks like stupid good fun, right? Now, as we're getting closer to release with the launch date of October 8th, I wanted to see if there's been much actual info about the game revealed, and it turns out there has been. A fair bit, actually. Beyond the 4 trailers that they've released thus far, we also have got multiple developer blogs going into some pretty good detail on many of the game's systems, features, and mechanics. And it sounds awesome and like way more in-depth than what I expected. You know, again, watching the trailers, I just thought like, okay, cool. You know, you go in, you got super strong modern day weapons, you're back in time, all these idiots got bows, armor, and some swords. Whoop-de-doo. Like, you're just gonna go in there and mop everything up with ease, right? But no, actually. There's like a lot more going on here. The game features massive scale battles simulated in real time with thousands of troops on screen. And this is something we've seen in the footage. Like there's a lot going on here. There's also realistic physics and ballistics. You've got certain armors that will dampen low caliber weapons, even negating some of your weapon damage, or the fact that you can shoot higher caliber bullets through materials, not just enemy armor, but also buildings. There are RTS mechanics. You've got troops that counteract each other in rock, paper, scissors like fashion. You're going to use this to form your own militia, deciding what the makeup of your army is going to look like, and then using them to counteract the rock, paper, and scissors of the enemy armies. There's also base building, invasion, defense prep, environmental destruction, not only just leveling entire buildings, but portions of buildings, which you can use to your advantage tactically. The game will have siege weapons. There are elite enemies in the form of officers that act basically like boss encounters with their own troops and formations you'll have to counteract, and an entire morale system where armies can be rallied or caused to flee in fear. And I'm just like, what? I just thought this was the game where you had a rifle against medieval armies. Haha, stupid. And like, there's a lot to this game, and it just has me that much more excited learning about all of this. So I want to dive in, give you the full rundown of everything we know about Kingmakers. Before we do though, sit tight for a quick word from today's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Dragon Ball Gekishin Squadra, a new 4v4 battle game in the Dragon Ball franchise, where you can play as some of your favorite characters, unleashing earth-shaking abilities while also teaming up with friends and allies to defeat opponents in a fight over objectives. Each playable hero in the game comes with their own unique abilities and skills while filling one of 3 distinct roles. Damage, pretty straightforward. You'll be dishing out attacks with more aggressive playstyles aimed at taking down enemies. Tanks are persistent and hard to knock out, helping you defend your team while soaking enemy attacks. And technical are versatile supports where you'll be boosting your allies and disrupting enemies to increase your odds of victory. As matches progress, you'll be growing in strength, unlocking new powerful skills, which ideally you'll use to take down enemy players and bosses. There's customization, as you can personalize your favorite heroes with character skins, entrance animations, and special finishers. The game features cross-platform play, letting you team up with friends on PC, console, as well as mobile, and it is available right now. So if you like what you see and are interested in learning more, you can check out the game yourself using the link in the description below. All right, so let's get into it. I want to start off with kind of the general thing that got this whole thing started. When talking about the origins of this game, the developer, Redemption Road, said, Kingmaker started with a simple question many of us have dreamed of in games. What would happen if you brought modern weapons into a medieval battlefield? Could a single person with a modern arsenal obliterate a medieval army? That idea alone unlocked a ton of gameplay possibilities, but when you introduce guns and explosives into large-scale medieval battles with thousands of soldiers, the balance of things gets technically complex, and that's the challenge our passionate dev team has been excited to tackle. And it is with that framework, with that premise, that we go into kind of the rest of what they've came up with as their solution to that question. All right, so let's start with combat. As you've seen in the trailers, combat is predominantly a third-person shooter. You've got a range of weapons as well as throwables and vehicles at your disposal. Some of the weapons we can expect to see with the game initially will include a variety of handguns, rifles, SMGs, shotguns, miniguns, grenade launchers, rocket launchers, throwables, and mines. You also have a small buckler, which you carry with you at all times and can be used to perfect parry enemy attacks, which will stagger enemies in the process, along with a sledgehammer that you carry around with you should you decide to take a break from the range combat. This is also good for staggering those elite enemies, the officers that you're going to have to contend with. So from what we've been able to tell, the game will be mission based because they said you start each mission with lower tier weapons, such as a simple bow, crossbow, or basic handgun and a handful of grenades. And then as the mission progresses, you gradually unlock more powerful options. Here's a quote from the blog. They said, in Kingmakers lore, the future is in rough shape and suffering from low resources. So requesting new guns isn't that simple. It's not going to be the case that at any point you can call in a helicopter strike or ask for like a rocket launcher and an LMG. It's going to be constrained as to what you have access to at any time as you're dealing with the thousands and thousands of enemies that are streaming towards you. So what they said is you'll have to take loot from the past, gathering resources like copper, gold, and other hidden treasures, then sending those into the future, and that's going to be your form of currency to buy new weapons as well as upgrades. Speaking of which, there is a weapon upgrade tree. You're going to be able to improve things like your weapon's magazine capacity, armor pen, and accuracy, and this will be the case for all of the different classes of weapons. Now, at the launch of early access, we're also going to have access to 3 potentially vehicles. There'll be a motorcycle as well as a convertible car for sure, and I know in some of the trailers they showed a pickup truck. They decided to switch to a convertible car so you could just aim out of it in 360 degrees rather than just shooting out the window. And beyond that, they are hoping to have the tank in time for the early access launch, but that hasn't been exactly locked in as of this blog post. All right, so you're going out there, you've got your modern day weaponry, you're fighting the medieval troops. That's like the basic takeaway that everyone gets when they first watch the trailers, right? Let's go into a bit more detail though. Obviously, as you've seen, you're going to be fighting against a lot of different troops, but there are actually different troop types, and each of those types will be filling distinct roles in a rock, paper, scissors like fashion. When the game comes out into early access, there will be 6 troop types to start. The swordsmen gain defensive bonuses when positioned near other units, especially archers. Spearmen are effective against cavalry, able to slow or even knock riders off their horses, whereas cavalry are fast and brutal and great for smashing through enemy lines or flanking. You've got archers who are powerful against lightly armored units like spearmen, but vulnerable to melee troops. Berserkers wield axes and can enter rage mode to deal high burst damage. And finally, the men-at-arms are heavily armored macemen that act as tanks, able to temporarily boost their defenses to hold the line. So troops in this game can be upgraded with up to 2 or 3 tiers, and this is going to have them specialize in certain areas. So for example, they said that the archers can be upgraded to longbowmen, which will then cause them to do additional damage to armored units at range. On top of that, there is an entire skill tree system. As you play, you're going to periodically find these holy relics, which can be used to enhance your army with branches that will boost the effectiveness of multiple troop types at once. For example, you can get things like berserkers going into rage mode or men-at-arms getting extra tanky with a defensive boost. Those are some things you can spec in and enhance. And these troop types are both for your armies as well as for the enemies that you're fighting off against, and you're going to have to be paying attention to what types of troops do the enemies have and what troops should I use to counteract those based on their composition. And then beyond wading through and taking on those hordes of basic troops, you also have to contend with enemy officers. These are larger, much tougher to take down with a variety of armor tiers, and deadly in their own right should they get close enough to you. There will be a variety of officer types, each with their own troop and fighting styles that you'll have to learn to counteract. So for example, there's the shielded pikemen who will march forward with their shields raised, throwing spears, or the warhammer brutes who will swing in wide, big arcs, taking out a lot of your army. Now, some enemies, especially the officers, wear armor with tiers that range from steel to gold titanium alloy, and not all of your bullets are going to have an easy time taking down every enemy. It's not just, you don't just have a pistol and you're taking down everything in one shot. That's not how it's going to work. They've done a lot of real life research, they said, into armor penetration and have tried to make things on the realistic side of things while also making sure it's fun and at times challenging when it comes to the gameplay. So light caliber weapons are going to struggle against even basic armor. You're not going to be one-shotting everybody in a basic set of armor, while the mid to heavy caliber ones will pierce through hardened or even titanium alloy. Now, the top-end elite officers, they will be wearing the best tier of armor, and this is going to require you to aim precisely in order to deal damage and take them down. They've said that officers are designed to feel like these cinematic mini-boss encounters. They've got complex AI, heavy loot, and unique abilities tailored to challenge you, the player, directly, which is going to act as like a big contrast to what you're doing to the basic troops, mowing them down, not only by sending in your rock, paper, scissors formed army to counteract whatever they have, but also with your weaponries. General troops without much armor, you're going to be dealing with pretty easily, but the officers, they're going to be things that actually require some paying attention to counteract whatever it is that they're doing. Now, on top of all of that, this is like way more of a strategy game than what I anticipated. I remember doing some light research for a prior video, and they mentioned that they have like RTS things where you can get a top view of the battlefield. But I really just thought like, okay, so you just got like, here's my, I've got 5 or 6 troops and I can point them in this direction. No, it's like way more than that. So for starters, there's the simulation side of stuff that we mentioned earlier. The battles you partake in actually run as a fully real-time simulation with thousands of soldiers fighting simultaneously. Now, every soldier is controlled by this multi-threaded AI, which is used for their decision-making, their pathfinding, and even their loyalty to their commanders. Now, this combined with what they call a unique procedural animation system has allowed Kingmakers to offer a really high level of character and combat fidelity. Now, as for the RTS mechanics, well, there are several layers here. For one, you can pull back to get that top-down view of the battlefield. You can do this at any point. You'll be running around with your character, taking some shots, and then you can just pull the camera up to get an overhead view of what's going on. From that view, yeah, you can command your troops where to go. Now, there's like different formations and stances, and the developer has said that the Total War series was a huge inspiration for how they've implemented the system. However, at the same time, they do have units that are individual rather than moving as just like a single rectangular blob or whatever. They're going to be interacting and doing things kind of on an individual basis. Now, when it comes to the troops in your army, you get to pick and choose the mix of types that you want from those 6 different troops that we mentioned earlier. Some examples that the developer gave included massing up archers, which are used to protect swordsmen, which is great for efficiently leveling a village or an outpost, or sending in cavalry charges to overwhelm and scatter your enemy, or doing something like combining macemen with axemen, which is good for tight flanking wedges or crushing from sides in a pincer move. So again, you got that rock, paper, scissors thing, and you're kind of trying to pay attention to what the enemy's doing and position your units, but also have the right combination of units to counteract those. And all of this is happening in real time, all of it. And then after directing your troops on where to attack, you can then swap back down into third person and join the fight. And yes, you're going to be shooting the enemy and trying to like soften them up for your troops to then finish off. But there's other things you can do. Like there are going to be healing grenades. So if you've got some of your troops that have taken a lot of damage, you can toss in a healing grenade to boost them back up. There's also an entire morale system. So enemy troops are going to be boosted by any officers that are nearby. But if you take an officer down, that can cause the troops to retreat. They've also got this like localized fear system where if enemies witness you blowing up another soldier, they have a chance to panic and flee the fight. It doesn't even just have to be taking out an officer. You can just like absolutely obliterate one enemy soldier, and then a nearby one could like panic and just run away. And then when it comes to your army, you are the officer for your troops, and you're gonna have abilities. There's like skills in the game that can boost morale in different ways and can even support them directly, like those healing grenades, for example, that we mentioned. And on top of that, the game has base building as well. They've not shared a lot of detail on the system, but we have seen in the trailers that you're able to do things like place down houses, barracks, lumber mills, and even construct castle walls with barricades. There does seem to be some sort of an invasion system where you've got time to prep your fortifications, set up your army composition and placement, anticipating an incoming invasion that you have to fend off. And the troops under your command, they aren't just fodder. When you get some troops defeated in combat, you're actually going to have to place down a hospital and then bring remaining survivors to that location where the hospitals can revive fallen members and then restore up to a full squad, so long as they were only partially wiped out. If if you lose an entire troop with every member eliminated, you're gonna have to go about the process of recruiting a new one to replace them. There are siege weapons, including things like trebuchets, ballistas, and archer towers. And then as you progress and you get the resources and have gotten far enough, you can call in modern equipment like Gatling turrets or airstrikes. Now, these are certainly powerful, but they're not necessarily I win buttons, as all of the equipment that you can summon in this game can be destroyed by enemy forces, and you are at all times outnumbered. It's really a numbers game. There's a lot of them for you to deal with, and that's kind of the balance they've tried to strike here, given that the firepower you have is very, very strong. There's a lot of destruction and physics-based stuff in this game, so the buildings are all very detailed. You can enter them, and there's a lot of them that even have multiple levels where you can go up several flights and floors and get to the roof and kind of aim down at enemies, or you can blast a hole into a basement below, because there is full-on destruction as well. So for example, every weapon in Kingmakers has a penetration rating and interacts with destructible environment differently, whether it's plaster, wood, or stone. High caliber guns like LMGs can shoot through multiple walls at once, even taking out several soldiers with a single shot. And with enough power, yeah, you can outright destroy buildings. Explosives, sledgehammers, and vehicles all do a good job of this. And then grenades and any other explosives will actually damage in their blast radius. And beyond taking out pods of enemies, this can be used to like blow the whole roof in, causing the falling debris to damage enemies and then open up the skyline. Also, in one of the recent trailers, they revealed that they are going to be supporting co-op with up to 4 players joining together online, working together to break down enemy castle defenses or defend allied strongholds against hordes of invading opponents. Everyone in your co-op lobby can also command their own troops and have access to their own vehicles, and I can just imagine the sort of mayhem with the 4 people driving around in vehicles, commanding their own troops, taking on these hordes of armies. Like, it just sounds like it's going to be a really good time. Now, as already mentioned, when the game initially comes out, it will be going to early access. It already looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. Like, I'm super looking forward to playing, but they've also laid out some of their potential plans for the future. They said that there's a lot of things they want to do with Kingmaker. It feels like they've got a lot of possibilities, and that's exactly what they're using early access for. Post-release, their plan is to add new factions, such as the Scottish or French. They're going to introduce epic castle sieges, deeper troop officer systems, and have even considered adding a PvP mode, which could really be amazing. Like, could you imagine like a 4-player competitive PvP with these systems? The fact that it's a combination of this like crazy third-person shooter with these RTS mechanics, like this could be really, really cool. Definitely an idea that I really hope they pursue and are able to support some sort of PvP multiplayer, because I think that could be a blast. This already looks like fun just as a PvE and cooperative game, but I think it could be a lot of fun with an extra mode of PvP as well, so we'll have to see. Then they talk about having helicopters and planes that you can pilot as something possible in the future, which could be really cool. And lastly, mod support is in the works as well, and they're looking forward to seeing what sort of creative chaos we come up with. This game is already absurd. This game with mods, yeah. So now obviously we're just talking about like the laid out details, features, and mechanics, and all we've seen is a handful of gameplay trailers. I think there's like a total of like 7 or 8 minutes of total gameplay footage from those trailers that we've seen, and it's all curated. We don't know how it's going to turn out. As with any game, it is a gamble, but on its face, like just the premise alone, this seems great. If it's feature rich, as it seems to already be, and whatever else they haven't revealed, if it has enough content and if it runs well, which is probably the biggest concern when you have any game talking about delivering the scale of this with thousands and thousands of units and full environmental destruction, there's a serious question about, is the game going to run well? Because it's usually those sort of dynamic elements and those number of AI enemies where you can run into performance issues with games. So we'll have to see how all of that pans out, but assuming that all is good, this could be really, really awesome. Either way, I'm looking forward to playing, hoping it turns out well. As mentioned, Kingmakers is coming out pretty soon on October the 8th, and yeah, can't wait to play it. Certainly expect a follow-up video from me once I've got some hands-on time with it. I'll share my thoughts, impressions, and overview of the game. Thank you once again to Dragon Ball Gekishin Squadra for sponsoring today's video. Be sure to check out the links below. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Kingmakers was a lot more than what I thought it was going to be, and I kind of just wanted to talk about it. So that's it. Thanks y'all. See you next time. Take it easy.